In this video, we're going to talk about the HMIS End User Agreement. We will go down through the agreement and touch on the important points regarding client confidentiality, as well as just cover what you are agreeing to when you sign this document. All end users must have this document signed, not only by themselves, but also their direct supervisor or executive director, whoever is requesting that they have access to the HMIS. So let's start with the important points regarding client confidentiality. So a client consent form or release of information must be signed by each adult client whose data is to be entered and shared through HMIS. Um, this does apply to all adults in a household. So anybody 18 years or older must have their own signed release of information. So before entering a client's information into the HMIS, you must obtain their informed consent. This is a critical step in respecting client privacy and adhering to data privacy regulations. The signed release of information is a legal document that clearly outlines what data will be collected, how it will be used, and with whom it will be shared. In our continuum of care, information goes out and is shared between all agency partners. It also covers the purpose of the data collection. So you must review this form verbally with a client to ensure that they understand their rights and the implications of signing it. The original signed form must be securely secured in a client's physical or digital file. Our system has the ability to have an electronic release of information, which does not require paper. But if you do not have the ability to do electronic signatures, or you don't have an electronic signature pad at your organization, you can still collect ROI in paper form. Okay, moving on. Client consent may be revoked by the client at any time through written notice. So clients have the right to change their mind about sharing their data. Consent's not a one-time permanent decision. If a client decides they no longer want their information shared through the system, they can submit a written request to revoke their consent. So upon receiving this notice, HMIS users and administrators must promptly update the client's record in the system to reflect their revoked consent and follow specific procedures to limit or cease the sharing of their data with other agencies. So something here to remember is services provided up to that point remain unaffected, or any of that information that has gone into the system prior to the client changing their release of information will continue to be shared. The HMIS end user or their program manager must contact the HMIS support staff prior to moving forward with any data entry after a client has requested a change to the release of information. Moving on, no client may be denied services for failure to provide consent for HMIS data sharing. So this is a fundamental principle of client-centered care. Participation in the HMIS is voluntary. While we strongly encourage clients to consent because data sharing can help coordinate care and secure funding for vital programs, a client's refusal to sign the release of information cannot be a barrier to them receiving the services that they need. Agencies must still provide assistance, though they may have to manage the client's information outside of the HMIS. So this is where your skills as a caseworker come into play. In the rare instance a client does refuse to sign the release of information, it's generally because they don't understand the what and the why. So if you take the time to talk them through why their information is being collected and entered and how it will benefit them, you can typically change their thoughts on the sharing of their information. Moving on, with the exception of case notes, clients have the right to inspect, copy, and request changes in their HMIS records. So transparency is key to building trusts. Clients have the right to access their own data stored within the HMIS. This includes information like their intake assessments, service history, and demographic data. If a client believes any information is inaccurate or incomplete, they can formally request a correction. This ensures the integrity of their personal data. Case notes, however, are generally excluded from this right, as they often contain sensitive information related to the provider's observations or opinions that are part of the professional client-worker relationship. Here, if a client requests to see their data, you can scroll down through the forms with them in the system, or you can print off a copy of the forms. So within Client Track, you have the ability to print. You may not give a client access to the system by sharing your login information and password so that they can log in to see their information. Okay, moving on, HMIS users will maintain HMIS data in such a way to protect against revealing the identity of clients to unauthorized agencies, individuals, or entities. So data security is everyone's responsibility. This means protecting client confidentiality in everyday actions. It includes ensuring computer screens with client information are not visible to people who are walking by. It also means logging out of the system when you step away from your workstation or locking your screen. Securely storing any printed documents and only discussing client information with authorized personnel for legitimate service provisions purposes. The goal is to prevent unauthorized access and ensure that client data is only available to those who have a legal and professional need to know in order to coordinate care effectively. I'd also like to point out that properly disposing of any paper forms with HMIS client information on them is a requirement. You can properly dispose of paper forms by shredding them. Your organization should have a policy in place for discarding documents. All right, end users will not share their HMIS passwords with anyone. Your password is your digital signature and accountability mechanism. Sharing your password, even with a trusted colleague or supervisor, is a severe security violation. Each user is assigned a unique login to track who accesses, enters, or changes client data. If a security breach occurs, system administrators need to know who was logged in at the time. So never write down your password where others can see it, and use strong, unique passwords that meet all security requirements. So yes, you should never share your login information with anyone, not even your boss. Anyone needing access to information within the HMIS should have a signed HMIS End User Agreement in place and would have attended training. And the last bullet point here is any HMIS user found to be in violation of the HMIS policies and procedures or the points of client confidentiality in this user agreement may be denied access to the HMIS system. Adherence to these policies is mandatory. Violations of confidentiality or misuse of the system have serious consequences. Depending on the severity of the breach, actions can range from additional training and a formal warning to immediate suspension of HMIS access, termination of employment, and potential legal action. These measures are in place to protect client privacy and maintain the integrity of the community-wide HMIS system. By using the system, you agree to abide by these essential rules. So as you see, these are all very important pieces of information to be well aware of within this user agreement, because by signing this, you are affirming that you have read this, that you will be going through training to access the HMIS system, that you understand and abide by policies and procedures, and that you will maintain confidentiality of client data, and that you will only collect and enter um, data relevant to the delivery of services to individuals.